Welcome back to the shop. My name is Rachel Ginjal. In today's tutorial, I'm going to rebuild a Wico mag. I have a C mag here, which is the 2-piece cap, and I also have an X mag, which is more common, just the 1-piece cap like this. This tutorial will apply to both, so I know at the end of this video, you're gonna have the confidence to rebuild your very own Wico mag on any 2-cylinder John Deere tractor. There are 2 different types of lugs on a Magneto. This is a short lug and this is a long lug. When you order parts, if you're ordering impulse parts, you will need to know what style lug you have. So those are the 2 examples. Also, as a word of caution, this right here is a distributor. It's still made by Wico, and you can see it has the same cap. So from the outside of the tractor, it looks like a Magneto, but it's actually a distributor. It has this resistor on the side. That's how you could tell from the outside. And then look at the back. There's no impulse. It's completely different than what you see here. Also, I should say that on this Magneto that we are rebuilding, this coil wire right here, somebody has modified. This isn't standard equipment, so don't get hung up if yours doesn't look like that. This is what a cap should look like. Let's start our disassembly. So first you need to take off this cover. There are 4 screws that hold the cover down, and there's a little gasket, which you can see came off with my cover. Inside here, we see lots of different parts. First, the rotor, and that just pops right off. There's no screws to hold it down. Then you have the points here. There's 1 screw here and 1 screw there. Next, we've got this little clip on the top of here, which we'll just pull off with a pair of pliers. And then that completely frees up the points to just come right off. Next, we have 2 screws here, which hold the condenser down, and that little strap we'll keep track of. There's the condenser, just like that, and that little felt piece can come off too. Here you have a screw on this side and a screw on this side, which hold the coil down, and we will see some little straps that also work with these screws to keep the coil in place. You can use a big screwdriver like this to get underneath the coil to help pry it out, and it'll come out just like that. There are 2 wires that come out of the coil. Had mine been hooked up and this coil been being used, this coil wire would have been around here rather than just tucked inside like that. On this side, we have a little stop button kit here, which we're going to take off and put a new stop button on. Your Magneto might not be equipped with a stop button, so you might not have this on your Magneto. But if you do, you can take that off just like so. On the impulse side of the Magneto, you can take your impulse off. I'm using a crescent wrench here to hold on to the lug, and then I have a 3/4 inch socket on my impact here. I'm going to just take that off just like that. Let me set this aside. Once that's free, then most of the time you can just pull the impulse off. Yeah, being careful because there's a spring underneath there, so I'm just getting ready for that to come off. But there's the impulse spring, and then the weights are underneath here. And then you'll see 2 thicker washers here, which just pull off. And then there's a thin washer right there, very thin, and then the big one. Those all come off. Now you'll see your plate with the dogs underneath here, and I'm going to use 2 big screwdrivers to get underneath the plate and try to pull that, pry it off. So let's try to get on opposite ends here. Prying a little bit, and I see I left 1 washer in there, so let me take that off and see if that helps it. Just a little bit more. Looks like it's coming. Just trying to be gentle so I don't break anything. There we go, it's loose. It'll pull the rest of the way off, I think. There we go. And then underneath we've got 1 more washer right here. Okay, next you have 4 screws in the corner here, which you can take all 4 of those out. Once those screws are out, then you can pull this plate out. I'm going to grab onto it here on the trip arm, see if it's loose. It's not. Oh, there it is, it's loose there. So I'm just gonna pull that right out of there, and then behind it, you'll see this little rubber seal, which comes with the ring around it that time, and then we see the bushing inside there. We have one more spacer to take out, and then I'm gonna flip the Magneto over, set it down like that so it's protected, and then I'm using a brass hammer to tap the armature out, and it's gonna bring the bearing and everything out together here. So there we go. Once that's out of the way, the armature will just pull out like this. On this side of the bearing, there is a snap ring which you'll need to remove. Once you have that out of the way, flip it around. I'm gonna straddle this on the vise right here, and then I'm using a socket to drive the bearing out. In very few cases will your bearing be able to be reused. Most of the time they need to be replaced, but you can put your finger in there and spin it around. Mine has lots of catches, so we're gonna put a new bearing in this one before we reassemble. When you are ready to rebuild your own Magneto, you are going to need some parts. The parts that are available on this table right here in front of me are available on our website, which is farmtractorrepair.com. Our business, J&D Productions, offers these. You can buy a tune-up kit for your Magneto, which is available for both the X and the C-type Magnetos. For some Magnetos, this is all that you need to do. You don't need to go further into it, and just a fresh tune-up kit will make a big difference on your Magneto. You can also purchase an impulse spring individually like this, or for an added price, you can purchase it already wound into a new coupling. If you do buy the new coupling though, you just need to make sure you know if you need long lug or short lug so that you get the right one for your Magneto. We also offer a new bushing and bearing. Of course, this is for the X type because the C type doesn't have this. The oil seal, if you do need new dogs or weights, these are also called for your impulse, you can purchase those. A coil is available here, and then the coil straps are sold separately. If you need those, you can purchase a replacement. New spark plugs, this is the stop kit, which we show how to install. Caps for both the C-type and the X-type Magneto are shown here, and then gasket sets as well. Again, all of these parts are on our website, farmtractorrepair.com. I realize that you can purchase Magneto parts many places. We are happy with the quality on these parts, and also if you purchase on our site, it does help to fund future tractor tutorials. Let's get back to work. You can see I have a new housing here. As I was disassembling the old housing, you could see that it was really in poor shape. In my opinion, that old housing would be salvageable with enough effort given, and it could look like this, but to save time today, I have a new housing ready to go. So the next thing I'm gonna do is remove this bushing that is inside here. I have a driver that's just the right size for this bushing. If you don't have a driver, you can use a socket. It just drives out like that, and then we'll put a new one in. You would want to replace your bushing if you have play. This is my old bushing, and you can see that there's play on the armature shaft here. This lobe is where we are going to eventually set the points on this Magneto. So if there's play here, that'll prevent my points from getting the proper setting and holding the proper gap on the points. So if you have play, that would be the reason why you would want to replace your bushing. I have my new bushing here, and it's just gonna drive right in. I'm gonna use that same driver. Again, you can use a socket. The most proper way to do this would be to use a press, but I'm showing you this method in case you don't have access to a press to press this bushing in. I want to drive that in until it's flush across the top. Next, I have a new bearing to go into the carrier. I did clean my carrier, and I also put a little bit of lube on it. It's going to press by hand first just to get it started, and then I'm going to very gently tap it in the rest of the way, just like that, and then I'll put a snap ring around here to secure it. I'll put a little bit of oil on the armature here, and then it's ready to just come right through like that. Next, I have this thin washer that's gonna go in all the way, just like that. And then this carrier with the bearing inside goes in after that. You drive this down until it's flush there. I'm choosing to put in a new oil seal, and then I have the spacer here. Notice that the spacer has a lip, and the lip's gonna go back like this, but I'm just gonna press it into the seal like that, and then put it over the shaft. Then I'm reusing this paper, and it'll rest right there. And next we have this timing plate. So look closely here, you'll see a little notch right there. That's the timing mark, and this is left hand. So when you look at the Magneto here, we're gonna put this arm on the left, and then slide this on here, and then look at the top of your case. You're gonna see all these little timing marks alongside here. We're using this the second notch, but it's the first tallest notch, and that's what you wanna have lined up right there. Once you have that lined up, I'm gonna move mine ever so slightly. Once you have that lined up, you can go ahead and put your 4 screws in the corner there to hold that plate into place. I'm putting a little bit of oil right there, and then I'm covering that up with the oil slinger, just like so. The oil slinger is a reused piece. And after that, we're ready to put the plate with the dogs on. These little things, this is called a dog or a weight. Every once in a while, you'll see where this is broken off. They don't really wear out, but if you need to replace your dogs, we do have replacement ones. You just pop this little snap ring off the top and put a new dog on it. Super simple if you need to do it. Mine look great, so I'm gonna reuse them. With that, this will just get started on there. Notice that there's a flat spot here, and there's a flat spot on the shaft as well, so you gotta line the flat spot up, and then you can get it started by hand, and then you can finish it off. I'm just using a socket right here that will go around the dogs to drive it on the rest of the way. Next, you have this spacer here, which just slides right over. And then this plate is directional. So notice there's the flat slot, which is gonna go right here. And then also these holes right here don't match up. So flip it around, and they do. See how they rest right there on the 2 posts there for the dogs. So just do that. Then you have a flat washer that goes on top. Gotta not forget that flat washer. And then you're gonna have 2 identical ones like this. You can set one of these on now, then the other one with the impulse spring. The next step is to put your impulse spring in. This is the hardest part of the whole Magneto, so follow closely. This is my new impulse spring, and you can see that there's a tab right here. This tab goes into the notch that's on the outside of the coupling. And because this is a left-hand rotation Magneto, we're gonna start the spring going around to the left. So you can see I just drop that right into the notch. That's fairly simple. And then you gotta really get the spring started over here close to the coupling. So I'm taking this pair of pliers to bend that into place. Once I have that swung around there, I'm pushing this in. See, I gotta get past that coupling into place right there. Now where my thumb is, I'm gonna take a pair of locking pliers and hold that spring into place around there. Now notice when I put the pliers here, that's too big of a grab. The end of your pliers have gotta be just at the tip of the coupling so that you can wind the rest of the spring in there. So now you have that held into place. Then you can take the spring, and again, I'm trying to get one more round down in here. Just like that. Now I'm gonna take another pair of locking pliers and put them on the outside here to hold that spring down into place. Now I got that locked in. I'm gonna try pliers on this next step here. I'm just gonna start winding this up and see if I can get it small enough so that it'll snap in. There we go. There we go. You can use your thumbs there at the end to help you push it in. I'm just gonna release now because I think it's secure. There we go. Okay. There's the impulse that is in and secure. I have my Magneto held into the vise on the part where the rotor is going to rest on the shaft. I did that because there's a flat spot on there, and also I'm not incredibly worried about damaging the shaft where the rotor rides. So you can hold it into place there as well. And then I did take one of these washers with the notch out, and I set that in the inside of my spring here, and you'll want to do the same. Now you can wind it on. So I'm looking for my flat spot here for the flat spot on the shaft, so I know I've got to set it down here, and I have that started. Now, the spring has got to wind around. I need to get this, let me take that back off there and show you. This part right here has got to rest, get around all the way to right here. So it's going to rest like that. That's my goal here. So let me take that washer back off, put it in there, get my flat spot lined up. Now I'm going to wind around here, and you can see I've got spring tension fighting against me. And I also, as I wind around, see right there the dog pops out. So you got to keep the dogs in on both sides, which my dog's coming out there. Just need to twist it just a little bit more. And now I can see I'm past that, and I'm going to tap it down with the hammer ever so gently. Double check. Dogs are in. I'm wound around to where I need to be. I'm good, so I'm just going to tap it down the rest of the way. And then I'm going to tighten up with this nut on the end. This center bar that goes inside the coil is called the core, and it's a piece that you reuse. So you just drive it out of your old coil and then you drive it back into your new coil. It's fairly simple. It is directional. See how there's this tab that sticks out that goes towards the bottom, and it's going to rest inside the case here. When you slide it in, just make sure that your wires are pulled up towards the front and that they're out of the way, and then you can slide that into place like so. I have new coil straps here. These don't really wear out, so if your old ones are okay, you can certainly reuse them, or you can replace them if you want to. Mine looks to be in really bad shape. So they just, notice the direction that I have it here. They just slide right in there, and they kind of go on the strap, and then let me lower this just a little bit, and then you'll see that the screw hole will line up there. You do that same procedure on the other side, but when you put your strap back in there, just make sure that you aren't pinching these wires, because you don't want those to get hung up. This shorter one is the ground for the coil, and it's going to go right here, and then this one will hook up later when we put the screw on the side. So this wire is going to go on the next hole down. The next piece to put in is the condenser, and it's held in place by this strap. We have a new condenser with a strap that we are reusing. This just rests right up here, and then you can see there's 2 screws right there. Notice that I have my lubricating felt in place here, which you'll want to do the same, and then you're ready to put your points on. So your point plate is here, and that goes over the shaft. Which one does it go over? This one, just like that. And then there's this little washer that goes on top. There's a spacer. There we go. Okay, then you have the second part of your points here. So this slides around just like that, and this goes down on the shaft. Then I'm going to put 1 screw here and 1 screw there to start those being held into place. I am choosing to put a stop button on this Magneto. These Magnetos weren't originally outfitted with a stop button, so in order to turn off the tractor, you'd have to turn off the gas and let it run out, or worse yet, unhook one of the ignition wires. It's just clumsy. So an easy way to put a stop to your tractor when you want to turn it off is to install this stop button that just grounds it out when you press the button here. So in order to install that, if you don't already have a hole on the case of your Magneto, you need to drill a 1/4-inch hole here. Sometimes people will put them up here. The location, it doesn't have to be so many inches down. Just drill a 1/4-inch hole where you can get it into your case and get it secure. Then you purchase a stop button kit, which I'll show you here. So it comes with this screw, which has a square head underneath the main head of the screw and the square insulator. So you put this on here, and you bring that through from the inside of your case to the outside. You can see that I have mine right here. And then you follow that with this circle plastic insulator on the outside here. And then next you use the flat washer that's in the kit. Your kit comes with flat washers and lock washers. This is where you use the flat one. And then the very next thing you put on is a nut. And then you put your stop button on here. As you can see, I have my stop button. I followed that with a lock washer and a nut, and then You can end it there if you want to, or if you want to run an additional ignition ground wire, you can in between these two nuts here, which would go up to a key switch on the dash. That's optional. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but if you want to, you can. Then the last piece to the stop button kit, you have two options. You can use this wire or you can use this strap. I used the strap. So this hook portion here, you can see goes in there over top of the screw. Let me show you a better view right here. Okay, so this is gonna hook on there like this. And then I bent this so that it fits onto the peg of the points here. Also on this screw from the points, you need the wire that comes down from the coil, the wire that comes from the condenser, and your stop button connection. You can use this metal piece if you want to, or if that piece isn't long enough, your stop button kit does come with a wire which serves the same purpose. So let's say you drilled your hole up here and that little metal piece won't reach, you would connect this wire down here and then bring the wire to the post of the points. So you use either this or that, not both. You have both choices inside the stop button kit. So once you have that all installed, you have a nice way to turn off of your tractor. Again, this is optional, but I like it and I would encourage you to put it in as well. You can set your points to 12 to 15 thousandths, so you use the feeler gauge to do so. You want to set your points when you're at high lobe. So look at this center shaft right here, and you can see that's high lobe, this would be low lobe. Notice right here that this is not touching, so you want that up on high lobe, and now you're gonna make your adjustment right down here to the 12 to 15 thousandths. You can see I can't even get my feeler gauge in there, so that tells me that it's way too tight. I had to really force. So this is why you don't tighten up your screws until the end. My screws are loose, so I can put a screwdriver in here and I can move that plate ever so much. Oops, that might have been too much. And then put your feeler gauge in there. Yeah, that was too much because it's a little bit loose. So you move it back up and test it. Oh, that feels perfect right there. So I'm gonna tighten it up. And then once you tighten up the screw, you always double check it, because when you tighten it, that could make a little tiny movement and then your adjustment would be gone. But that held good, so make sure that both of your screws are tight and that your points are set to that adjustment. The next piece to put on is the rotor. Look on the back side, you'll see a flat side, which lines up to the flat side there on the shaft. This is gonna just slide into place just like that. And then if you, which I hope you did, when you took your Magneto off of your tractor, you looked at which direction the rotor was facing. Mine was like a backwards L, so I'm gonna move it to that position and hold it there so that when I put it onto the tractor, I know that it's in the right position to be ready to go. I am putting on a new cap. Remember when we started this video, my cap had been modified. But if your cap is in good condition, you could probably reuse it. You want to look at both of these connection points, both of the spots here, and make sure that it's in good shape. If it's in good shape, you can reuse it, but if not, you should definitely replace it. Make sure that your spring is straight up and you've got a gasket on there, and then the cap will just slide right on, and you tighten up the 4 screws in the corner. I have my rebuilt Magneto onto the tractor. When you put yours on, make sure that you use a new gasket on the back face of your Magneto, and it's also a great idea to put a new set of spark plugs in as well. You can replace your wires if they're showing wear and need replacement also. Okay. This is how you would make adjustments to the timing. While it is running, you can make adjustments to the timing if you need to. That's why the base of the Magneto has those slots in it, so that you can move it back and forth from side to side, and that's how you can make a timing adjustment. Ours sounded really good. I don't think we need to make a timing adjustment on this tractor, so we'll just tighten up the bolts and the Magneto will be snug and secure. When you are hooking up your Magneto, let me give you one word of caution that I've seen people make a mistake on before. That is, some people will put a power wire right here where the stop button is. If you do that, you will burn up your points, damage your coil, and have to rebuild your Magneto all over again. So make sure that you aren't putting any power to your Magneto. A Magneto makes its own power. I hope that this tutorial is helpful to you and it gives you the confidence you need to rebuild your very own Wico mag. Look through our channel. We have other videos that pertain to antique tractors. For these 2-cylinder tractors, we have some carburetor rebuild tutorials that might be helpful to you as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.